Listen, before we get started, can I just say that it's ridiculous 2025 is over already? I feel like it was January yesterday, and then I blinked, and now we're in December, and I don't like it. The passage of time is a cruel and unyielding enemy that I will figure out a way to beat one day, but with all that being said, 2025 was inarguably the most important year for the superhero genre. Marvel had a lot to prove after a variety of ups and downs, while DC bet the house on another universe reboot. If this year wasn't a success, we probably wouldn't have seen another comic book movie until they fell into nostalgia sequel territory, and nobody wants that. So now that Wonder Man has been delayed until next year and every project has been released, it's time for me to take a look back and see how they did by ranking every single superhero movie and show that dropped this year. At least the ones I watched. I'm sorry, but I didn't have enough time to watch Bat Fam, a series that was actually released. Let's just assume it's the best one though, right? It pains me to say that coming in at number 13 is Captain America: Brave New World. I don't think there's anyone on the planet who championed this movie more than me. As the massive Captain America superfan I am, it definitely sucks to see a movie I was so excited for at the very bottom of this list, but at the end of the day, this was a very competitive year. And I think that looking back, we were really blessed this year because I don't think there was a single bad project, including Brave New World. It might not be as high on this list as I would have hoped, but it will always have a special place in my heart. Is it flawed? Yeah, absolutely. I'm not going to argue that. The pacing is just way too fast as they breeze through the plot, and you can tell they had to cut some stuff out of it that I wish we would have seen, along with the fact that there are characters in here who are just completely unnecessary. I'm looking at you, Ruth. Don't understand why you're in this movie for a wide variety of reasons, but especially considering the fact that you don't do anything of note. And I wish they had gone with the original leader design rather than the broccoli head they gave him in this film. But even with the problems facing this film, I still had a great time watching it and I really enjoy it. That should come as no surprise considering the fact that I'm a Sam Wilson fan first and foremost, so I'm a little biased in this regard, but I really appreciate how this movie handles his character and the arc we see him go through as he's faced with these insurmountable odds and so much self-doubt that he overcomes throughout the course of the movie, but especially in how this film positions him as the definitive Captain America going forward. It's by far Anthony Mackie's best performance in the MCU, and he has such a screen presence to him that you just can't help but see him as Captain America. Whether it be the empathetic way he approaches every situation, or his unique fighting style we see in some really great action scenes that I don't think get nearly enough credit, but I can't talk about this movie without referencing the incredible aerial combat sequence. Watching that in IMAX was a religious experience. That sequence goes so incredibly hard. Captain America literally surfs on a missile in that, and they want me to think this is a bad movie? Get out of here. This movie does a good job of standing out as a Captain America film, even with all the Hulk backdrop they've thrown in there, which I still do think works for the most part, especially when it comes to Red Hulk, because I love the way they handle him in this film. Treating him as this powder keg that is getting rage baited throughout the course of the movie until he finally explodes in the third act and we get this incredible final climax between him and Sam. God, these videos are always so hard to do because I made a 45-minute review of Brave New World and now I have to sum that up in like 2 minutes, but to try and sum all of this up before I can't stop yapping, I really do think this movie is good. Do I wish it was better? Yeah, absolutely. But I'm happy with what we got. And as long as we get more Sam Wilson-focused Captain America movies in the future, Brave New World works to build the foundation for his character going forward, and I'm really interested to see what he does in the future. Especially in something like Avengers Doomsday now that he's been positioned as the leader of the Avengers going forward. Up next at number 12 is Creature Commandos. And I know what you're thinking. Didn't that release last year? Kind of. The first 5 episodes all released in 2024, but the final 2 released in 2025, and I never made a review about this or talked about the show as a whole, so I'm going to include it, okay? You can sue me if you want, but it feels wrong to just ignore this show on my channel for so long. Creature Commandos is a fascinating series because I definitely think it's the weakest of James Gunn's superhero projects. You can definitely tell he had to write this, Peacemaker, and Superman in the same year, and which one he played favorites towards. But that's not to say that I hated this. I honestly think it's pretty good. I really like the structure of having each episode focus on a different member of the team as we get to see their origin story in a flashback, contrasted with the present day events as they try and fight Cersei. I think it's a really smart way to flesh out every member of the team and make you care about each and every one of them. It especially works with characters like G.I. Robot, who I think is by far the standout of this entire series. His episode is without a doubt my favorite of the entire season. There's just nothing more satisfying than watching Nazis die on screen. screen. I rewatch the coin-operated boy scene maybe once a month. He is clearly the standout of this series, but I do think the rest of the cast is pretty solid overall. Still don't love Frank Grillo's Rick Flag. I feel like that's a miscast, but the bride is really compelling as a character, and Weasel's flashback episode almost got me crying, so that says a lot. The reason Creature Commandos comes in this low is that I have two big issues with the series. The first is I think it's a bad adaptation of Cersei, especially now that I've been reading more Wonder Woman comics. That's just not who she is at all. I mean, come on guys, the fact that she got soloed by Weasel should say a lot. Just because his episode made me tear up does not give him an excuse to one-shot Cersei. But my biggest problem with the series is that while I think the structure works, I don't think there's nearly enough time because of it. We spend so much of this series learning about each character that by the time it comes to the finale, it feels like we haven't done enough in the present day, and it just wraps up way too quickly for me with a surprise death that I don't think it needed at all. This ending feels much more like a mid-season finale to me than a complete season finale, which is an issue with television as a whole nowadays, but due to the way Creature Commandos is laid out, you really feel it here. That being said, I am genuinely looking forward to season 2 now that they've done the hard part of building this foundation for the series to stand on. We don't have to worry about introducing new characters and telling their stories. We can just focus on the present day and see this team operate in the DCU, and now that that universe is really starting to get going, I see a lot of potential in that, especially with the lineup we have at the end of that series. This is a stacked team we're working with. Coming in at number 11, we have Eyes of Wakanda, a series that actually exists. I would bet that most of you forgot this happened or probably haven't even seen it, but I would genuinely recommend it. I think it's a very fun, short series. It's only like 4 episodes long for some reason, but those 4 episodes are really good. This animated anthology series set in Wakanda's history explores different artifacts that the Wakandans are trying to steal back, and I think it is a great concept for a series and would love to see it expanded out in the future, especially considering the fact that the animation looks so gorgeous. Oh my god, I love this art style. It is easily the best of the Marvel animated shows in my opinion. I need Marvel animation to do more like this, where it's an exaggerated art style, than just trying to perfectly recapture the appearance of people like they do in What If. Yes, that was just my way of including Kate Bishop in the video somehow. Especially when it means they can go crazy and give us cool fight scenes like this. Yeah, there's a past Iron Fist in this show, by the way, so for that alone, it's peak. I think they do a great job utilizing this format, and while I do wish it was more than 4 episodes long, I do really appreciate that it is a genuine anthology series and each episode is self-contained from the rest. But by far the craziest thing about this series is the insane retcon they do in the last episode, where they reveal, had Killmonger not stolen the artifact in Black Panther, the entire world would have been destroyed. You think I'm joking, but no, that is an actual thing they reveal in this series, as there's this whole like time travel plot when the Wakandans stop that axe from ever being stolen. It's so crazy to just casually drop on us in a show called Eyes of Wakanda out of nowhere, but I think it is incredibly ambitious and a bold idea that absolutely pays off and makes this show worth watching, because it's gonna explain it better than I ever could right now. And let's be honest, I doubt you watch this anyways. So what are you doing? Just go watch it after this video, okay? You have to watch the entire video, but after this ends, go watch Eyes of Wakanda. It'll take less than 2 hours. Then, at number 10, we have Marvel Zombies, the show they released in September for some reason, despite being perfect for the horror season in October. If we ignore the fact that somebody at Marvel Studios has a personal vendetta against me for killing off all my favorite characters in this show, then yeah, I think it's really good. The tone is so much better and more consistent than the What If episode, as they fully commit to the horror aesthetic and go all out with what I think is one of the hardest Marvel shows of all time. It's like their first pitch in the writer's room was, what if at every possible turn, we did the coolest thing we could ever do? And it works beautifully. We get to see insane things like Spider-Man ripping off an army of zombie heads at the same time, or literally anything Blade Knight does, or characters getting eviscerated like it's nothing. Do you have to show that again? I'm still mourning. God. But objectively, that goes crazy. Like, that's a great subversion, even if it does really make me angry. It is such an improved usage of the what if concept, as we're allowed to take more time and dive fully into a timeline and explore how things have changed 5 years into this zombie apocalypse. I love the way it reinvents events in the MCU, like how we see Melina return and use the Red Room mind control agent on the zombies to have this army of zombies at her will. It is such a creative way of using the lore of the MCU to tell a fresh zombie story. It also helps that Iman Vellani is the lead of this series, and whenever she's involved with something, it's gonna be great. I could watch her forever. She is such a joy on screen and brings so much life to every project she does as Kamala Khan. Her relentless optimism being tested against the bleak post-apocalyptic zombie universe is a great idea for a series, and I think they execute it so well. Huge bonus points for basically giving us an entire Young Avengers episode in the beginning there too. You don't understand how desperate I've been to see them in live action, so this was a great little taste to hold me over until, that happened. And what's great about Marvel Zombies is that out of all the series on this list, it seems like Marvel Studios is already discussing the potential of Season 2, and after that insane cliffhanger, I really hope they do, because there is so much potential in a post-apocalyptic Marvel universe that we see play out here. At number 9, we have Gen V Season 2, a show I finished about 5 minutes before I started recording this video. Eagle-eyed viewers might have noticed there wasn't a Gen V Season 2 review on the channel because I kinda got very busy and dropped the show halfway through. That's not to say it's bad, I was genuinely enjoying it, it's just, I've been feeling so burned out on the Boys universe that I didn't have the motivation to continue watching this show. Despite the overall average quality of all these seasons being good, I think I had just become burnt out on hopeless and crude stuff like this. Which is why I think it's even more impressive that Season 2 of Gen V acted as a welcomed reminder of why I enjoyed this universe in the first place. This back-to-basics approach in a show that is stripped back from all the provocative nature, to say the least, of The Boys is so greatly appreciated. I cannot stress enough how much I enjoy a show that has a much more earnest approach and grounded nature to it. Now, to address the elephant in the room, the tragic death of Chance Perdomo put them in a spot I do not envy, trying to rework an entire season of television when you lose one of your leads. But I think they found a way to push forward with a story that not only makes sense and does him justice, but pushes the entire universe forward as a result. And while it definitely stumbles along the way with a slow start as they have to reestablish where things are at, and the burden of tying things into Season 5 of The Boys can definitely get in the way a bit, but once we get into the back half of the season is when things really pick up in the most exciting way possible. I think that Marie is far and away the most interesting character this season, as we have to see her deal with her role in Project Odessa and understanding the incredible potential of her powers, all while figuring out this relationship with her sister is great. But I feel like Emma might be my favorite character in the show at this point. She is just such a joy to watch, and I really appreciate the depth she's given in this season. But also, I do really like Jordan's character, so it's hard to say. One thing I will say on a YouTube video that's gonna last forever is that I didn't see the Godolkin twist coming at all. Maybe it was because I took a month break between episodes, but I feel dumb for completely missing that. So when that reveal happened, my jaw dropped, and it made for a really exciting finale. I don't know how many people watched Season 2 of Gen V. It feels like Amazon kind of forgot to promote it, but I definitely would recommend going out of your way now, like I just did, to go catch up on it, because it reignited my interest in this universe and actually got me more interested in Season 5 of The Boys. So that can't come soon enough, especially now that I'm interested in these characters and cannot wait to see how they fit into this grand finale. Then at number 8, we have Peacemaker Season 2, one of the more recent entries on this list, and a very controversial season by the looks of it. I'll be the first to say, I think this is a damn good season of television. The finale being a little messy doesn't take away from the fact that the first 7 episodes of this show were so good and had me glued to the screen. I really love how this season utilizes the multiverse for some actual creativity. The concept of Chris using another parallel universe as a coping mechanism to run away from his problems is such a great utilization of the trope, and I think it goes a long way to tell a very personal story about taking accountability and running away from your problems. Also, I have to mention just how good of a performance John Cena is giving this season. It's the best he's done in his entire career. I know it's very different from Season 1, but I really appreciate the slow burn mystery that unravels throughout those first 6 episodes until we get the incredible reveal that Peacemaker is actually on Earth X, where the Nazis won World War II. Despite the fact that everyone and their mother could see this twist coming, the way Gunn builds to this reveal is done so incredibly well and fills you with so much dread and tension as all the characters are figuring out at the same time. Especially with the genuine horror of Adebayo learning it at the worst possible time when she goes out on a walk. Oh god, that visual of her running down the street is gonna stick with me forever. That is terrifying. I'm trying to figure out a way to word this without making it sound like I'm praising a Nazi universe, but I just really enjoy seeing how this show plays around with the concept of the multiverse and and uses that to tell a very personal, character-driven story. More than any other thing he's worked on, you can tell that James puts his whole gun into Peacemaker. That's so stupid. Whatever, it's staying in. This show is very clearly a passion project for him, and he puts so much of himself into it, especially when it comes to how he writes these characters, as we see just how messed up and broken all of them are. From Chris not feeling like he's ever going to be good enough as he's rejected from joining the Justice Gang, to Amelia Harcourt being so broken and feeling unlovable. It is a very good season of television that just happens to trip at the end with a finale that bit off a little bit more than they could chew. If things had just ended with episode 7, I think this series would be looked at very differently, but episode 8 takes a very radical change, and while I do love how character-driven it is with a beautiful emotional catharsis from the main Peacemaker cast, I think all the stuff with Rick Flag Sr. and Salvation just does not work in this season, which is a shame because I think you could have done something really special here, and I feel like it just does not have enough time to tell the story they're trying to. So that's not great, but I'm not going to let it undercut what I think are 7 fantastic episodes of television that really deserve their place on this list. At least the new dance number is better than the first one. Okay, I will die on that hill, and you cannot convince me otherwise. Oh Lord is such a banger. Following that, at number 7 is Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. God, this came out in like, what, January? I've lived so many lifetimes since then, but one thing stays true, and is that this show is such a great modern-day Spider-Man story. It's almost like an honorary what-if project in a way, as we basically get to see what Marvel would have done had they had the full rights to Spider-Man in the MCU. I think the idea of seeing how Peter's life would have differed had Norman Osborn existed in the MCU and been his mentor is a really interesting concept that they do a great character study of Spider-Man with. In this show, we get to see a much different side of Peter as he goes from this happy-go-lucky kid to getting more jaded as time goes on, as he has to deal with the terrible things the world is throwing his way, along with Norman's insistence on letting loose and embracing that darker side of himself. And I think it is a really great exploration of how these two characters influence each other. If I could just highlight one moment that I think is still my favorite scene from the entire series, it's when Peter stopped the person who robbed this pizza place and encourages the owner not to press charges because he can see the nuance of a situation and understand that this person is on hard times and shouldn't lose their life because of it. And that is the most Spider-Man thing I've ever seen, watching him fight for the oppressed lower class. By far, my favorite thing about this show is, surprisingly enough, Tombstone of all characters. Seeing how his great responsibility mirrors that of Peter's as he crumbles under the pressure of all that power and embraces it is one of the most interesting character arcs we've seen in any Spider-Man media. I think it's a really fascinating reinvention of the Tombstone character to give him this pre-existing relationship with Peter Parker and then make him have one of the most tragic fall-offs we have ever seen. And the fact that it all started because he wanted to help his brother just makes it all the more sad. God, this show feels like a definitive modern take on Spider-Man, if that makes sense. And it's all done in a gorgeous art style. That's right, I think this art style is gorgeous and I will fight anyone who says otherwise. I love the blend between 2D and 3D animation paired with an emphasis on the 60s aesthetic. I cannot wait to see how they continue to evolve it in the future. I feel like, as a Spider-Man fan, I have the kind of greed they talk about in the Bible because I am just so desperate to see more of this, and next year is going to be an incredible year for the wall crawler. Okay, here we go. Number 6 is the one that all the comments are going to be about, Ironheart. I know. Ironheart at number 6. You must be crazy. No, I'm not crazy. This show is so good. I feel like I was going insane watching this and seeing the reaction from a lot of people who I feel like weren't watching the show, because those who were should have seen that this is one of the best live-action shows Marvel has ever made. They took a character I was mildly interested in coming out of Wakanda Forever and turned them into one of the most complex in the entire MCU over the course of 6 episodes. Showing someone who is so stricken with grief that they're not able to move past that and end up making a deal with the devil is a mind-boggling subversion I did not expect them to make in an Ironheart show. Who would have thought this would have been Mephisto's first appearance, but it works so naturally in the story they're telling with the inclusion of the Hood and all these themes of grief and guilt, especially because Riri basically has 2 arcs over the course of this season. The first being her struggles with grief that she ultimately falls to, but the second is that she learns how to be resourceful after she realizes the same lesson Tony did, that you don't need to be a billionaire to create this suit of armor and be a hero. Because believe it or not, she was not in that cave. She wasn't helping Tony Stark fight the Mandarin on Christmas. It's important for her, as someone who comes from this underprivileged background, to have this perspective shift and realize that she doesn't need to be a billionaire to be a hero. And I love the way we get there as Riri goes down this path of crime, trying to do bad things in search of the greater good as she wants to use her technology to help the world and fund her suit. But over the course of the season, as she gets tied up in groups that she shouldn't shouldn't be involved with. She realizes the mistakes she's made when she gets in over her head, backed into a corner to the point where she has to learn magic, which is one of the coolest things ever, by the way. I love how this series introduces techno magic to the MCU. It is a great way to differentiate her from Iron Man. But as the monkey's paw curls its finger inwards, she loses the AI recreation of her dead best friend that was not helping her move on, sending her spiraling right into Mephisto's grasp. But, I mean, if it's any consolation, she has one of the coolest suits of armor in the entire MCU. I love that design so much. I'm very sorry for the rant, but I'm also just so sick of the bad faith arguments I've seen about this show. The only problems with Ironheart are the fact that we are still stuck with that god-awful 6-episode runtime. Side characters like the entire heist crew don't get enough time to be developed. And while I wish it was longer, it doesn't take away from the incredible character work they do with Riri and tell this overarching story about legacy and how to handle that with characters like Ezekiel Stain. It is probably the most underrated Marvel series to ever release, and I wish Marvel actually decided to market it because it's so good and I want more people to watch it. Alright, here is when things get serious as we enter the top 5 projects released this year, and honestly they're kind of predictable, but that's fine. It was a good year for superhero storytelling. At number 5, I have Daredevil Born Again, the Frankenstein series of 2 different creative visions mashed together that should not be as good as it is, but I am so grateful that it is. That's a very hard sentence to say. It's hardly a secret that the Netflix Daredevil series is my favorite show of all time, so I was more excited than ever for Born Again upon its release. Also a little bit concerned as they did reshoot 3 episodes of this series along with retooling it to better be in line with what came before. It's crazy that we had to get to that point, but I'm very glad that Marvel made the necessary steps they did to change this series for the better, because I think we are so much better off because of it. Except for, one major thing where they just happened to kill off Foggy Nelson, and I've already yelled enough in this video, so I'm gonna try not to, but I'm still mourning that death to say the least. The way I stay sane in all this is that I cope and say he's still coming back, okay? I'm not flinching. Foggy is alive. Come back to this video next year, and I'm telling you, he is risen. But as for the rest of the changes, it was a Herculean effort from new showrunner Dario Scardapane, along with directors Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead, to come in here, reshoot this, make it feel in line with what came before, along with the episodes they already shot, and be good. And somehow, they managed to fit this puzzle together to give us the beautifully sewn together show that is Daredevil Born Again. Out of the entire season, I think there's only one episode that did not work for me, and that's episode 7, the big payoff to the Muse arc, because they made him a whiny kid who did karate rather than this mysterious serial killer, and I think that they took away all of his aura, but at least he's coming back for season 2, where I can only hope they redeem him. Every other thing this season did, though, worked for me in every possible way. I mean, God, I wrote a 15,000 word script and talked about this for over an hour when I reviewed the first season. I love this show so much. From the way Fisk and Matt's journeys are paralleled over the course of the season as they relapse on violence, to the reintroduction of Bullseye as he finally becomes the villain he was always meant to be, to more moral debates about killing with the Punisher, to an incredibly heartbreaking trial of the White Tiger that I still lie awake crying at night because of, to even a standalone heist episode that I maintain is great. It is a miracle that this show exists at all, let alone the fact that they managed to weave it together in such a seamless way like this. I really like the bold narrative choices Born Again makes out of the crushing tragedy at the start of the season to take Matt on a journey we've never seen before, breaking him down to his absolute lowest point mentally, to the point where he's not even going to church, and then over the course of the season, slowly breaking him down even more and more until he is forced to confront his violent past and embrace it once again, realizing that as much as he wanted to, he can't do things Foggy's way. The city is simply too corrupt to sit idly by and let the system take practice when this system is actively being poisoned by the Kingpin who now runs it. It is a beautiful and violent exploration of power and the weight it holds over us that I think does wonders for Daredevil storytelling. And I can't really find anywhere else to mention this, but the new theme is so good. I would say it is just as good as the original. I love the inclusion of the organ in it. It just gets my adrenaline pumping. After 7 years of waiting for one of my all-time favorite characters to return to the screen, with several cameos and guest appearances in that meantime, I 100% think that the wait was worth it, as I really enjoyed the first season of Born Again. But even more so, Born Again did the most important thing they could have, and that was get me even more excited for the future of this series. The new creative team has such an inspired vision for this character, as they've made him this revolutionary icon in Fisk's hellscape of a fascist-run New York, as he finally dons those big, bold, beautiful double Ds on his chest. I truly believe that the best for Daredevil is yet to come in the MCU, and I am bouncing around my room excited to see what that is. I just hope that somebody took that fog machine away from Benson and Moorhead. My only complaint with their direction. That brings us to number 4. What, you think I'm gonna make a video about and not do the bit? That's my favorite thing about talking about. All right, that's it. I have it out of my system now, I promise. Guys, this show is so good. I genuinely cannot praise it enough. For the last 3 seasons, it has been a shining spotlight in the superhero genre, and this most recent one might be my favorite one yet. That's a hot take to say, because I do think season 1 was amazing, and that's no knock on season 2 either, but season 3 just blew me away. And I'm not just saying that because of the brain rot, although that definitely has taken an effect on me. It especially helps that Amazon actually remembered how to market this series. This is so much better than that weird half and half thing they did for season 2. I cannot believe they let that slide. Watching this show that will not be named build week by week by week until we get that beautiful climax at the end was I said incredible, not Dang it! I'm so sorry you had to see that. Let's just get back to the show. I say this pretty much every time I talk about this series, but I have never read the comics this show is based off of, and I think that makes me enjoy it even more. I just get to cluelessly walk into this and enjoy the show for what it is, and good God, is it amazing. This is such a strong season of television that has improved on pretty much everything about it. Let's start with the action, because I think it needs to be commended just how much better this show looks season by season. If you ignore the fact that they're getting mogged by a porn animator every time they release those season trailers, the actual animation inside the show itself has thankfully made some improvements. It's not just entirely sliding PNG animation anymore, most notably with the inclusion of impact frames this season, which I always have such a soft spot for. Look at this shot of Conquest bodying Kid Omni-Man and tell me that's not the coolest thing you've ever seen. When it comes to the animation in this show, though, I think it's really funny how you can always see where the budget went. The Conquest episode is an easy standout as we see Mark go up against this untouchable bloodlust, and I do really appreciate how they give that character so much depth as he masks his loneliness with violence. And then also there's the title character war in the back half of the season as we see Angstrom Levy return with this complete destruction of Mark's legacy. A lot of the time shows get to build up to one big event by the end of the season, but this one manages to have 2, and they both hit like trucks. Oh my god, I was fully stood up watching the TV like this out of pure excitement. And a large reason those 2 big events hit is because of how great Mark's character arc is this season. I really love the idea of pairing him up with Oliver as he's forced into a mentor role when he is very much so not equipped to handle that, but especially in the way that it bleeds into Mark's struggle with his no-kill rule. The crushing depression that came with him thinking he killed Angstrom Levy, only for him to come back and then have to make the decision on if he wants to kill him for real this time, is so compelling. I would say this is probably the most interesting Mark has been in the entire show for me, which says a lot. I love seeing him deal with the idea of being a hopeful hero and what kind of legacy he wants to leave. Even more so with Mark's character arc this season though, I love how they've paired him up with Adam Eve. Most notably, I'm just glad that Eve has a bigger role this season because after that special they released with her, I think she is one of the most interesting characters in this entire universe and I will always cheer her on. If it wasn't for one other character, she would have been the MVP this season. But unfortunately, in the most tragic sense, that crown belongs to Rexplode because good lord man, I was not expecting the arc they'd take him on over this season. We've spent 3 seasons now watching Rex mature and now we've gotten to the point where he actually might be happy, and the second that conversation happened, I should have realized what they were setting up because man, his sacrifice caught me so off guard. I'm so glad we don't have to wait much longer to see more of this series because they are cooking like crazy and I cannot wait to see where it goes next. All I know is that there's a guy named Thrag in it and he seems fun, so we'll see. Oh god, they're gonna traumatize me, aren't they? Up next at number 3, we have Thunderbolts * The New Avengers. Now, if I was doing this ranking based on what movies had the most ghosts in them, this would be number 1. And trust me, I almost ranked it that way too. I joke because this is a very tough one to talk about for me and I'm stalling because of how incredibly emotional it is. Oh god, I get choked up just thinking about it, but I will be fair and rank every movie on its own merit, and thankfully, Thunderbolts still scores very high on the list because I have not been able to stop thinking about it since May. Thunderbolts is the exact movie the MCU needed at the exact right time it released. It is a powerful, character-driven movie that pushes the universe forward in really exciting and creative ways. This might be the most human MCU film out there. There is such a heavy sense of raw vulnerability coming out of it with the way they handle the themes of loneliness. And because of that, it's a very easy movie to connect to and relate with as we explore some of the MCU's most broken characters. But I think it's really interesting how they unite the misfits and outcasts of the MCU who are currently directionless and bring them together to find purpose. It's a really great way to play around with the MCU sandbox and use all the tools they have at their disposal, all while creating something that is greater than its parts. And none of that is possible without a strong team dynamic, which this movie excels in. Everybody is so unbelievably flawed, some more than others, but due to the performances and the way they're written, they come across as so likable to the point where you can't help but root for them. And over the course of the movie, we watch them come together and earn that chemistry. The entire cast does a great job and almost everybody feels important. But I have to give a special shout out to Florence Pugh as the lead of this film because good God, man, she might just be the most talented working actress today. I truly believe there is nothing she can't do. I mean, she convinced Kevin Feige to let her jump off of a building, for God's sake. That is incredibly impressive. But I would argue even more impressive than that is the way she's able to effortlessly balance the depression and levity of Yelena Belova. Her entire arc in this film is so rewarding as we watch her find happiness and purpose. It feels so real and hits a little too close to home seeing her deal with this lack of direction in life. Then seeing how she's able to do good in this team dynamic. It meant a lot to me to see, and it is always going to stick with me, especially when it comes to the first and last shot of this movie, which I think is instantly iconic. Calling back to how she started the film feeling nothing, and now by the end she cracks this smile, in a beautiful full circle moment that solidified her as one of my favorite superhero characters of all time. And that arc is not possible without Lewis Pullman's Bob/Sentry/The Void, and he is an absolute powerhouse on screen. You know how difficult it must be to play one character who's also playing 3 different characters at the same time? The weak, mild-mannered Bob who is clearly spiraling, the Sentry and his god complex, and then the Void's desperate depression trying to take over the world? And he's able to switch back and forth on a dime. I could not imagine anyone else playing him in the role. Despite the fact that you can definitely tell Steven Yeun was supposed to play him, especially with how many times they say... Okay, you know, I asked for that one, but still. I think it's one of the most creative and powerful things I've ever seen in a superhero movie to turn the Void into a metaphor for bipolar depression. The entire movie is about acceptance and embracing your flaws. The way the Thunderbolts beat him is through the power of friendship, literally hugging him until he stops. It is so beautiful, and I'm gonna stop myself from crying, but oh man, this movie broke me in the best possible way. Whew, okay, I need a minute. Let me stop talking about the sad stuff and appreciate the gorgeous visuals of this film. The warm and cold color grading is so pretty to look at and does a great job complementing the tone of the film, and you can really tell they tried to do things as practically as possible because the entire movie has a real sense of tangibility to it. But if that's not enough, it also has one of the most incredible scores in the entire superhero genre. Everything about this movie just clicked for me in a way that I have been dying to see in a superhero film. And I think we all owe that to Ghost, my beloved Ava Starr, who finally makes a return in this movie. Oh my god, I cannot tell you how happy I am that I can say that. This was the most vindicating thing ever to see her return and do some of the coolest stuff ever, now finally finding her own family and herself through it. And now she's an Avenger all of a sudden and is going to be playing a big role in one of the biggest superhero films of all time. Outside of all the silly jokes, this is a movie that really means a lot to me and spoke to me on a genuine emotional level. Okay, that brings us to the big question this video has been building up to, answering whether or not Fantastic Four or Superman was the better movie. And while this is no competition, I do have to crown one of them as my favorite comic book movie of the year. Genuinely, such a great coincidence that they both ended up in the top 2. I did not plan this whatsoever, and I'm very glad that Marvel and DC both came out swinging this year. But man, it is really hard to choose this one. I saw Fantastic Four 4 separate times in theaters. That is true commitment to the bit right there. Superman made me cry 3 times alone. These are 2 movies with huge implications for the future of each franchise, but there can only be one winner. With all that being said and the stakes laid out, at number 2 it is Fantastic Four First Steps. The reason I put First Steps at number 2 is that its only shortcoming is that it came in too short. But that is not a knock on Fantastic Four in the slightest, because I have seen it a grand total of 6 times this year. Yes, I've watched it 2 more times since it came out on home release. A fact I am way too proud of. As a lifelong Fantastic Four fan, they are, without a shadow of a doubt, my favorite superhero team of all time, and I have been beyond desperate to see them done right for the entirety of my life. Which is why I'm happy to say that this movie absolutely lived up to the expectations for me and finally did the Fantastic Four justice. They have never been in better hands than with Matt Shakman. I hope we are lucky enough to see him make as many sequels to this as he wants for the next decade of our lives and beyond. When adapting the Fantastic Four, it is essential to get their family dynamic right, and this movie gets that, as their relationships all feel real and authentic. And it is made all the better because this movie understands these characters are scientists and explorers above all else. Their primary goal has always been exploring the great beyond of the universe, and in Reed's case, trying to solve everything. It is so refreshing to see a movie adaptation paint the Fantastic Four as the celebrities they should be. It is exactly how I always wanted this team to be portrayed, and this movie owes a lot of that success to how great this cast is. Let's go through them all one by one, shall we? Vanessa Kirby's Sue Storm is going down in the history books. She is such a powerhouse on screen, portraying such raw levels of depth and vulnerability as the emotional core of this film. She is the glue that keeps this team together, a comforting mother, and such a badass in this movie. Oh my god, I'm so happy we finally got a film that respects the Invisible Woman and shows how capable she is. There is truly nothing more dangerous than a mother's rage, and I am so glad that she is in the spotlight in this film. Then we have Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards, and I would even go as far as to say he just is Reed Richards in this movie. I only ever saw him as Reed, which is incredibly impressive for someone who stars in as many movies as Pedro. I just see Reed Richards. It is that faithful of an adaptation as he gave everything to this role. As the smartest man in the world who can't solve social interaction, which is always my favorite way for Reed to be portrayed, they strike such a perfect balance between Reed's guilt complex and anxiety with his love as a dorky father, and it makes me so happy to see. And I especially love Pedro's reserved performance throughout the entire movie until it all explodes out in the third act. Oh, he is just so good in this movie. But here's the thing. Yeah, I get another one this video, okay? Eben Moss-Bachrach was born to play Ben Grimm. We definitely needed more of him in the movie, but what we got was a dream come true. He is so warm and friendly and lovable in the film. I love to see a version of the Thing who isn't defined by the fact that the world views him as a monster. It is so interesting to see Ben in his happy place for once as a cool, calm, and collected character. But at the same time, you can tell there's a sense of longing under that rocky exterior as he's not ready to jump into a relationship yet. And I can't talk about Ben in this movie without praising the flawless CGI throughout the entire film. He looked incredible. If you told me that the Thing was real, I would believe you, because look at shots like this and try and tell me he isn't. It's some of the best VFX work I have ever seen. I especially love his dynamic with Johnny in this movie too, as they act like actual loving brothers. And by the way, Joseph Quinn's casting as Johnny Storm might be the biggest standout of the entire year for me. Everyone owes him an apology right now. I want to see that in writing because he blew me away in this role. More than any other character in the Marvel Universe, Johnny Storm so often gets flanderized as the hot-headed man whore, so it is beyond rewarding to finally see a version of Johnny who is as smart as he is annoying, a very important character trait to define him by. He's on this team for a reason, and this movie goes out of his way to prove his worth as he gets to solve an entire language. That's the coolest thing ever, and made me so happy to see a Fantastic Four film actually treat Johnny seriously. Even if we move past the family, the villains of this film are cast so well too. Ralph Ineson is so intimidating as Galactus. He is the perfect voice for this cosmic horror of a character. I can't even put into words properly how surreal it was to finally see him on screen interacting with the Fantastic Four like that, and I love the way they characterized him as this force of nature with a hint of joy behind it all. And then Julia Garner's Silver Surfer is the best we have ever seen. I will die on that hill. I love her dynamic with Johnny with this push and pull as he's able to help bring her over to the light side, and it's made all the better in the insanely cool ways she uses that surfboard. The space sequence in this film will always stick with me. It was a religious experience seeing that on an IMAX screen for the first time. My jaw dropped and it is still on the floor. I think I might need to see a doctor at this point, but it is worth it. The entire film is so gorgeous as they embrace this beautifully vibrant retro-futuristic aesthetic. From the throwback architecture to the great costumes to Michael Giacchino's generational score, that soundtrack was in my top 5 on the Spotify Wrapped, and it wasn't 2 through 5. I was obsessed with it. Whoever made the decision to set this movie in an alternate universe is my hero. They're unburdened from the history of the MCU, and it presents an interesting challenge as the Fantastic Four are the only superheroes on this earth. So when Galactus arrives and they fail over and over and over again, the blame falls entirely on them, and it creates for a really fascinating and complex story as the Fantastic Four are forced to face failure. Try saying that 4 times fast. As a Fantastic Four fan, this movie won over my heart as this love letter to the entirety of the Fantastic Four's history. Not just cinematic history as we get to see the 90s cast finally get their moment on the big screen, but down to the comics as this movie does everything in its power to give Jack Kirby the credit he has always deserved. Every single frame is packed with so much love and care from director Matt Shakman, the entire cast and crew, and everyone who had the pleasure of making this film. I would even go as far as to say that it was fantastic. Okay, I deserve that. Let's just get to the next one. Which means that at number 1 we have Superman, my favorite superhero project of the year. This film was a great reminder of why I love Superman so much in the first place. It's the kind of movie that makes you want to be a better person through action, which is exactly what a Superman movie should be. This entire movie feels like a comic book come to life in ways that I never thought the genre would reach, but I am so glad we have finally made it to the point where we are getting movies that fully embrace the fantastical and insane elements of those books. You can tell that James Gunn is a fan of this character first and foremost. So much so that this doesn't even really feel like a James Gunn movie, which is a testament to his range as a director. While there's definitely some Gunnisms throughout the film, you can really tell that he went out of his way to make sure that the style and tone of the movie fit the character more than anything else. Especially when it comes to how he actually directs the film, because I think he does some really exciting camera work that complements Superman's character really well. And not to keep overusing the word really, but I also really like the visuals of the film. It is a big creative swing to make a movie so stylized like this, even down to the emphasis on a fisheye lens, but I think it results in this larger-than-life aesthetic that fits Superman perfectly. Beyond the visuals though, I like how Gunn puts an emphasis on score over needle drops. The way they're able to remix the iconic Williams theme into something that's both familiar and new had me ready to run through a wall. But when it comes to adapting Superman, the entire thing falls apart if you don't get Superman right, and I am so grateful that we have David Corenswet in the role because he was born to play Superman. Not only is he the spitting image of Superman in a way that makes me think he was grown in a lab to play this role, but personality-wise, he is able to effortlessly embody the beacon of hope that Superman should be. Every time he's on screen, he radiates so much warmth as this protector of all life. We get to see a full range of emotion on display for the character, which is so nice. And I really do appreciate just how vulnerable this Superman is both emotionally and physically. He is the perfect example of the indomitable will of the human spirit. And while my only big problem with this movie is the origin change, as I think it muddies the immigrant allegory and cuts him off from half of his history, Supergirl has a chance to fix that, so I'll hold off on seeing how the future rolls out. And I do like how that moment inspires Clark. Oh man, that ending scene will always make me bawl my eyes out. I'm gonna get choked up just talking about it. I think it is so beautiful and a powerful way to end this movie about one of the most superpowered people of all time. Okay, I need to stop talking about that scene before I actually start crying. In a time and day where everything is so bleak, kindness has become counterculture. So I love that the thesis statement of this is how punk rock Superman is by trusting everyone and thinking that everyone he's ever met is beautiful. Acceptance has always been punk, and that is Superman to a T. It is so powerful to see on screen, only outmatched by the actual powers we see on screen, because Superman has never looked cooler than this. I've never done crack before, but I imagine it has the exact same feeling as this shot right here. And it's not like David is the only perfect casting in this movie. Look at his better half, Lois Lane. Rachel Brosnahan is by far my favorite Lois. She commands the screen so naturally. I think Gunn nails her characterization here as this hard-ass reporter who will do literally anything to get her story, and I really love that this is her movie just as much as it is Superman's, as she goes out of her way to save him at one point. Man, their chemistry is so good together. They felt like such a real, authentic couple. I could never be an actor. I would have left the set asking, what are we, after a scene like that? But they do it in such a playful and realistic way that you can't help but root for them as a couple. Unless you're Lex Luthor, that is, because that man is the hater of the year. No, of the century. Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor is one of those genre-defining comic book movie castings. He was by far the biggest standout of the film for me. Not only did he show me that I'm not hating enough, but he is completely consumed by pettiness and envy, and that takes center stage in this film. Every single decision he's made is driven by that resentment, as the most xenophobic man to ever live. But the fact that he went out of his way to create a war just to harass Superman and get a reason to kill him is crazy. I really love how this movie acts as a critique of American imperialism in that sense, as Lex literally went into another country and made it infinitely worse just to not only make himself richer, but carelessly put these people in danger just to fuel his own agendas. Superman has always been a political character. He is the champion of the oppressed, so I think it's great that this movie embraces that with open arms, as he is the hero of the working class, fighting a billionaire war profiteer, even going as far as taking a direct side with the smaller unarmed country and going the extra mile to free them, which has never been more relevant to today. God, there's so much in this movie to talk about. No wonder my review was almost an hour long. But it's really impressive just how well everything is balanced in this movie. That being said, I don't have time to dive into everything, so it's time for a speedrun. The Justice Gang are great. I love that Superman directly inspires them to do more in the world. Mr. Terrific is easily the best of them all. I love his aura farming. Guy Gardner is a complete asshole, which means he's perfectly characterized. I absolutely love him. Metamorpho looks incredible and is a very important example of how Superman can inspire other characters. And then Hawkgirl is hot, based, and badass. I mean, what more could you want than that? What else we got? Ultraman could have been used more, but I do love the sick combos Lex used to fight Superman with him. The entire Daily Planet crew are so well cast, but Jimmy Olsen fans, we have never been more back after he got shot in the head in the desert. He gets to play a pivotal role in this movie, and it is so welcomed. And then Krypto. Oh my god, Krypto. I can't believe it took me this long to talk about Krypto. I love how annoying he is and how Clark will do literally anything to protect him. Even knowing that he's a very bad dog, the mere thought of him being alone and scared will have him drop everything to protect him. Oh man, I love Krypto. I hope nothing bad ever happens to him in the future. Rick Flag Sr. was also there. Mr. Handsome, the GOAT. Ma and Pa Ken are so wholesome. It is gonna suck when they eventually die. Okay, I think that's everything. This is a Superman movie that made me feel so hopeful. It embodied everything I love about the character and put that on display for the world to see. I am so glad that people finally think Superman is cool again. I left that movie with the biggest smile on my face, and even here right now, all these months later, I still have one talking about it. I love this film so much and everything it stands for. It means the world to me. And there we have it. Every single 2025 superhero movie and show ranked. There's probably a fun little graphic on screen of my ranking that I'm gonna force myself to edit later on so you can see everything in context with each other. I'm just gonna keep yapping to fill time so you can take in my full ranking and type whatever hate comment you need to. I welcome it. And you know what, for fun, here's my ranking of every 2025 movie I saw this year. Yeah, that's right. I see more than just comic book movies. Even if that is where I spend most of my time, but that's not important. Man, what a great year it's been. Even if mentally I still feel like we should be in July, but at least we get to sprint through a good year. Not in the real world, it was hell out there. But at least the superhero stuff was good. Maybe even the best year the superhero genre has ever had. It's so nice to see Marvel and DC thriving, but even beyond that, with shows like and Gen V doing great. I love superheroes so much, and this year was a very welcomed return to form across the board. Historians will look back at this year as a turning point and the start of a new silver age for comic book movies and shows, and it warms my heart to think about that our best days may be ahead of us as we walk deeper into this bold new era of oh yeah, right, that does happen next year. Well, it was fun while it lasted. I do still think the best is yet to come. If 2025 was any indication, our best years are ahead of us. But what was your favorite superhero project of 2025? I would genuinely love to hear what everyone has to say and continue the conversation down below. And while you're at it, make sure to give this video a like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. If you don't do it, I'm gonna make 2026 living hell for you. Oh god, I'm gonna hate on you so hard. So subscribe or get ready for your worst year yet. I'm in your walls.